Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Imperial Beach Mayor Paloma Aguirre has been elected to the County Board of Supervisors. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Aguirre defeated Chula Vista Mayor John McCann in the District 1 special election with nearly 54% of the votes. And KPBS reporter Alexander Wynn joins us from the newsroom with the reaction.
Maya, the Board of Supervisors will once again have a 3-2 Democratic majority. In many ways, the results were not unexpected. Democrat Nora Vargas won this seat last year with more than 62% of the votes. Cheers and excitement from Aguirre's campaign last night when early results came out. Aguirre won the seat by nearly 7 percentage points. Speaking to our partner 10 News, Aguirre says she's ready to fight for the community.
We're fighting for clean air and clean water that our district residents haven't had for a long time. We haven't had that leadership. We haven't had a representative in District 1 for months. So it's time that we get somebody who's going to put people first.
Among those excited for Aguirre's win are the unions. They overwhelmingly backed her campaign. SEIU Local 221 President Crystal Irving says Aguirre's election is a game changer for workers.
It's a game changer because it is so critical to have people serving on the County Board of Supervisors who have demonstrated their track record of rolling up their sleeves and working for us and fighting with us as working families.
But despite the union's effort to get out the vote, the turnout was around 20%. That, however, bucked the conventional political wisdom that low voter turnout is bad for Democrats. Irving says that also shows they have a lot more work to do.
We continue to hear this is the most important election that we will ever have, and quite frankly, every single time it's been true. But I do believe that it is an indicator that people need to be reminded and educated about just how powerful their voice is and just how powerful their vote is.
And with Aguirre on the board, it will also resolve some of the deadlocks, such as funding for the Legal Immigrant Defense Fund and tapping into the county reserves to backfill some of the expected funding shortfall from the federal government. One legal analyst I talked to cautioned that could be a slippery slope if there's an economic downturn. In the newsroom, Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
Thanks so much for that, Alex. Now, housing is one of the biggest issues facing our county. Coming up, how the Board of Supervisors could shift policy now that they've returned to a Democratic majority.
Weather headlines here as we head throughout the next couple of days. I will be tracking lots of sunshine. Overall temperatures are going to be nice and mild here as we finish out the work week. I'm also tracking great weather here as we head into the weekend. But there's also going to be a chance of rain in the forecast here, especially along the interior and off to the east. I'll detail that updated forecast coming up.
President Trump's multi-trillion-dollar Big Beautiful Bill is now back in the House. The updated version, narrowly passed by the Senate, would cut taxes for most households and boost funding for immigration initiatives. But to offset the costs, it includes massive cuts to health care, food assistance, and other social safety net programs. Michael Yoshida explains what it could mean for you.
The deeply divided House taking up the Senate's version of Trump's mega bill, which would unlock tax cuts as well as boost funding for national security, partly paid for by the largest cut to the federal safety net in decades.
From seniors to college students, the wealthy to the poor, nearly every American could be affected by President Donald Trump's mega bill.
This bill has something for everybody.
The legislation, dubbed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, narrowly passed the Senate Tuesday, reduces taxes for nearly all households. But a Tax Policy Center analysis shows nearly 60% of those cuts would benefit only the top 20% of U.S. households, those making $217,000 or more yearly, while most middle and low-income Americans may not notice much of a change in their tax bill. It also temporarily provides tax breaks for some workers who get tips or overtime, and senior citizens through 2028.
Our goals were
how do we create an economy which works for working and middle America?
There's also roughly $150 billion in new funding for the president's immigration agenda, including money for a border wall, ICE's enforcement efforts, and detention centers. Some $3.3 trillion to the national deficit over a decade, according to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office.
We're adding debt to our children and grandchildren who are defenseless. Debt is a curse.
And the biggest cuts to the federal social safety net in decades, including food assistance, the Affordable Care Act, and Medicaid.
Donald Trump's one big ugly bill rips health care away from more than 17 million Americans.
Experts say it would have a ripple effect throughout the healthcare system, especially on rural hospitals, which likely would have to reduce staff, limit services, or close their doors entirely.
And House Speaker Mike Johnson has said he hopes to be able to have a vote on this bill either later today or tomorrow, the goal being able to try and pass the legislation before President Trump's self-imposed deadline of July 4th. In Washington, I'm Michael Yoshida reporting.
Some welcome news, for thousands of local grocery store workers. A tentative agreement has been reached on a new contract between United Food and Commercial Workers Union Local 135 and the companies that own Vons, Pavilions, and Ralph's. According to the UFCW, the agreement addresses higher wages, improved pension, health and welfare improvements, and staffing. Voting will take place over 3 days, beginning on July 9th. A federal judge blocked a Trump administration policy barring migrants who cross the southern border from seeking asylum. The judge found the administration overstepped its authority by bypassing immigration law. Immigrant rights advocates had sued over a presidential proclamation that effectively shut down asylum at the southern border. The judge said the president does not have the power to deny access to asylum for people who have already entered the U.S., no matter how they arrived. The administration is expected to appeal the decision. Countless Afghan nationals aided U.S. forces during our 20-year war in Afghanistan, and they risked their lives to provide intelligence, translation, and other vital services. KPBS reporter Gustavo Solis has the story of one Afghan family that feels forgotten after working for the U.S. government for more than a decade.
Syed Sadat came from Afghanistan to San Diego about 3 years ago. Because he worked for the U.S. government during the war, he was eligible for a special immigrant visa. His father, who also worked for the U.S. government, is eligible for the same visa. But Trump-era funding cuts and bureaucratic delays have left him stranded in Afghanistan.
So he is suffering from that service.
The family feels betrayed.
My father has worked for the U.S. government for almost 12 years, and he is now in Afghanistan. All his documents has been completed.
Sadat says that his father was approved for a transfer out of Afghanistan to Qatar more than a year and a half ago.
After the program paused, he is still in Afghanistan, and we don't know. He don't know what will happen next. I don't know what will happen next to him.
Meanwhile, his life back home is becoming much more perilous. Neighbors know that he and his family worked for the U.S. government, and that makes him a target.
He doesn't go out. He just stay at home as much as he can, and even most of the time we recommend him to don't use the same road when you are going out. Change your clothes, change your style, change different ways so that people cannot target you.
Since moving here, Sadat found work as an immigration assistant for PANA, an organization that helps refugees and new migrants adjust to life in San Diego. He works with Maria Chavez, PANA's immigration legal director, and she says that the Sadat family story is all too familiar, an example of all the different ways that the Trump administration has tried to limit legal immigration from Afghanistan. From canceling CBP-1 asylum appointments to eliminating protected status of people already admitted into the U.S. And more recently, a new travel ban barring most people from Afghanistan from coming to the U.S.
To me, it goes to show that it was never about doing things quote unquote the right way. These are individuals who they're following the rules, they're doing what they can to try to be in the United States lawfully because their country obviously is falling apart. It's not a safe place to be.
Chavez is particularly upset at the administration's decision to eliminate humanitarian parole programs for people already in the country. She says these are the people who followed the rules, entered the country legally, and now they face the possibility of being deported.
It essentially creates just a whole, substatus of people who are just in legal limbo. They don't know what to do.
The Department of Homeland Security did not respond to a request for comment. Chavez says that the rapid-fire nature of these policy changes create a lot of confusion and uncertainty.
My biggest advice would be to talk to a lawyer. And that's because even though we may not have all of the answers and we can't necessarily protect you the way we used to be able to, we can at least help you navigate all of the constant changes.
But more than anything, Chavez believes that it is important for San Diego's Afghan community to know that somebody here has their back.
I just want, the Afghan community just to remember that things are scary. I get that. I understand that. We are also afraid and feel hopeless at times. But there's a whole community of people here who are willing to fight for you and support you in any way that we can.
Sadat says that there's been a dramatic shift in the way Afghan immigrants are viewed in the U.S. They were invited because of their contributions to the American war effort. But now it feels like those contributions have been forgotten.
My message is for the lawmaker that don't left behind the people that they helped you in the hard time. Now, when we was in the hard time, those people helped us. So now when they are in hard situation, let's help them out in the safe way that they live peacefully.
He hopes that people in positions of power do not forget his people's sacrifice. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
I'm Amna Navaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, we speak with House Republican lawmakers who support and oppose President Trump's mega budget bill. That's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
San Diego city leaders are looking into turning the scandal-ridden 101 Ash Street property into affordable housing. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayers says the proposal went before the City Council's Land Use and Housing Committee today.
The 101 Ash Street building has sat empty since soon after the city started a 20-year lease-to-own deal in 2017 due to environmental building hazards from asbestos. Now the city of San Diego wants to lease the office tower to a development team that will convert it into housing for families that meet certain income qualifications.
And what this action today has great value in taking an asset that is sitting there empty, costing us money just costing us money to pay off the debt on it, could be turned into a positive civic asset.
Stephen Russell is president and CEO of the San Diego Housing Federation. While he's not affiliated with the deal, his organization is a leading voice on the construction and financing of affordable housing in the San Diego region. He says the proposed 60-year ground lease with housing developers MRK Partners and Create Dev LLC is a very good deal long term.
This is different because it tells the developer, you may use our property, you may improve and use our property for 60 years, and we get to keep it at the end of that time. It's a major difference.
The project details say developers will build 247 affordable residential rental units. The majority of the units will be for people earning between 60 and 80% of the area median income. That's $130,800 for a family of 4. Rents will be charged on a scale depending on what percent of the AMI tenants earn. They're also planning to build retail and commercial space. Jacob Ayers, KPBS News.
And we have some information to add to that just came in. The City Council has approved that proposal. Now that the county supervisor race is over, we will begin to know its impact on things like health policy and immigration. But in our latest Why It Matters segment, Voice of San Diego CEO Scott Lewis says the biggest change could be in housing policy.
We finally know which party will take control of the County Board of Supervisors, which could have big implications for how much new housing is built. This week, voters in South Bay elected Imperial Beach Mayor Paloma Aguirre to sit on the board, giving the Democrats a 3-2 majority. Builders, unions, realtors, police, and many others spent more than $2 million on the race, and it was an intense one between Aguirre and her rival, Chula Vista Mayor John McCann. There was a lot at stake. The issue with the most at stake may be housing. Aguirre's election will have a big impact on how many homes can be built in San Diego County and where. It will have consequences far beyond Aguirre's home in Imperial Beach and South County. And it's because of a simple concept called vehicle miles traveled. Let me explain. The county is a vast area of land, and most county land is not part of cities. There are 1,200 square miles of land in what's called unincorporated areas. Now, a lot of that is forests, federal land, parks, and more. But the county gets to decide what can be built on the rest of that land. And it did decide. In 2011, county supervisors approved the general plan. It's this colorful map. The different colors represent how much housing can be built and where. That was just the zoning and rules for San Diego County. But then California passed a law meant to curb climate change. And it said the county had to evaluate how many miles someone living in a new housing development would drive. And if they had to drive far, the county had to mitigate for it, add bus lines, preserve land, or otherwise balance the impact on the climate. That means a fee. And housing developers became so worried about how much those fees would be, they stopped building, even in the areas where housing was allowed by the plan. Everyone has been waiting on this election. If Chula Vista Mayor John McCann had been elected, the county would have made it much easier to prove that housing with minimal fees. But Aguirre thinks that would just lead to unaffordable McMansions in rural areas, hurting the environment. She wants housing concentrated in areas much closer to existing cities and villages. Now that her election has created a Democratic majority on the board, it seems more likely her vision will happen. There was a lot of rhetoric in the race about the president, immigration, border sewage crisis, and public safety. But the most significant impact of the race will be on what housing can be built in the county and where. I'm Scott Lewis for Voice San Diego, and that's why it matters.
Voice of San Diego is one of our partners for the Public Matters Initiative. You can learn more at kpbs.org/Public Matters. If you're in the market to buy a new home, you may have noticed many conventional loans require a 20% down payment, but there are other options that allow you to put down as little as 3.5%. Jen Sullivan looks at these other options that can help make home buying more affordable.
Home sale prices have skyrocketed in recent years. According to the National Association of Realtors, the median price of existing home sales in May was more than $422,000. And if you're buying a home at that price and putting down 20%, that means you need more than $84,000 in cash. And it means buyers won't have to pay for private mortgage insurance.
It's completely out of reach for many Americans to think about putting 20% down for a mortgage.
Well, 20% has long been the magic number for down payments. Jessica Lounce with the National Association of Realtors says that's changed over the last 5 years, and more first-time buyers are putting down around 9%. Here's how. Federal Housing Administration loans, known as an FHA, is a government-backed loan for qualifying buyers. Your down payment can be as low as 3.5%.
There is a credit score requirement, but it is in the 500s.
There are some downsides to that. Your offer could be less competitive, and it means your debt and monthly payment will be higher because you're putting down less money.
The expectation is that home prices will continue to increase, so that debt-to-income ratio is actually going to work out in your favor over time.
If you're a veteran or active military member, consider a VA loan. Lout says in some cases, you don't need to put any cash down.
Also, looking at state and local programs, the down payment resource is a great place to go to see what you may qualify for on a local level.
Lounce also recommends shopping around to get the best mortgage interest rate, and make sure you're still budgeting for closing costs that can add up quickly. For Consumer Watch, I'm Jen Sullivan.
California is offering new incentives to bring movies and TV productions back to Hollywood.
You don't have to be the cheapest place to do business. That's never been California's brand or model going back a century. We want to be the best place.
Governor Gavin Newsom signed a new tax credit bill today that increases incentives by more than $400 million a year. The legislation was first proposed last fall. The credit became refundable Tuesday. Meanwhile, a separate bill still pending in Congress is expected to expand incentives to animation, sitcoms, and competition shows. Beach advisories and closures were announced just 2 days before the July 4th holiday. As KPBS reporter Thomas Fudge explains, it's because of contamination.
One of San Diego's biggest beach holidays comes with a warning this year. A handful of beaches up and down the county's 70-mile coastline have been affected by closures or contamination advisories. One closure came in Coronado. There, a sewage spill fouled the waters near Coronado Bay Road along the Silver Strand.
Yesterday, the city of Coronado reported to our program that they had about a 1,300-gallon sewage spill, and so they proactively reported that so we could take action and close that water area for contact. So it's closed, about 500 feet north and south of where that spill was.
Heather Bonomo oversees San Diego County's beach and bay monitoring. She says beach closures occur when sewage or chemical spills are confirmed in ocean water. The county has closed beaches on the Imperial Beach shoreline and off Coronado, as we just mentioned, though that closure has just been lifted. Advisories are issued for La Jolla Children's Pool and a Cardiff Beach at San Elijo Lagoon.
And what the advisory does is it's really alerting the public to say there's a high level of bacteria, it could make you sick, and you need to make your own decision on if it's safe for you personally to swim in that water.
Bunomo says dredging a lagoon can cause beach advisories like the one in Cardiff, when that process also causes bacteria levels to rise. Beach closures are lifted when water testing shows the pollution levels are again acceptable to state standards. How long does it take for beach closures to be lifted? Bunomo says it depends.
The flow of the ocean, the direction of the swell, the winds, all of those really play into how quickly that sewage may be dissipated out into the larger ocean and bring those bacteria levels down.
So far, none of San Diego's most popular beaches have closures or advisories. Bonomo says the Imperial Beach coastline near the very polluted Tijuana River has been closed with only intermittent openings for the past 1,000 days. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
Anyone who wants to check San Diego beaches for closures and advisories can go to sdbeachinfo.com.
As we head into tonight, I will be tracking low clouds near the coast. Overnight temperatures will dip into the mid-60s, so pretty mild start here for your early Thursday morning. Across the rest of the region, we'll see overnight lows mix of 50s and 60s primarily, down to 61 tonight for both Oceanside and Camp Pendleton. Once again, 63 downtown San Diego. Heading into tomorrow, this is your overall Thursday forecast. Showers and thunderstorms across the four corners into the desert southwest. Along the interior, things are going to be warming up there along the California-Nevada state line, but we're still going to see mild conditions here across Southern California, including the San Diego metro. Here's the overall forecast for San Diego County. We'll see temperatures ranging from the 70s along the coast to the triple digits there across the desert region. So overall, it'll be a warm afternoon here for 73, the afternoon high for both Oceanside and Camp Pendleton. Heading into Friday, take a look at this, very warm conditions. So the heat is going to warm up here and ramp up as we head into the 4th of July. But overall, lots of sunshine, great weather for any outdoor activities, especially to get outside and get a chance to enjoy the 4th of July. But as we head into next week, I do want to point out we will see a strengthening and intensifying area of high pressure that is going to bring record high temperatures possibly here to some areas, mainly along the interior, but we will see some warming conditions along the coastal areas as well. Here's a look at that extended 5-day outlook for the coast. We'll see sunny skies, highs in the 70s, no real good organized chance of rain. Overnight lows will be a mix of upper 50s to low 60s, but great weather as we head into your 4th of July weekend. For the inland forecast, lots of sunshine. Temperatures will be in the 80s. Overnight lows will be in the 50s. Once again, looking pretty dry. Across the mountains, highs will be in the 70s. We'll even make it to the 80s, it looks like, by early next week. Lows in the 60s and even some 50s there tonight and Friday night. And then across the desert, temperatures holding strong in the mid to upper 100s. You can see right there. Overnight lows will dip into the 70s, so very sunny, very warm conditions across the desert.
Staying active is a critical component of being healthy, but in our busy lives, it can sometimes be hard to find the time to work out. Mandy Gaither has simple ways to work exercise into your daily life.
From work to family responsibilities, our schedules tend to stack up.
One of the biggest complaints I hear when it comes to exercise
I just don't have the time.
But part of staying healthy is being active. The CDC says adults need at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity a week and 2 days of muscle strengthening activity every week. The good news is that you don't have to get it done all at once. It can be spread throughout the week. And if you're just starting out, it's okay to take it slow, says Dr. Sanjay Gupta.
Research shows even a 5-minute walk will do you good. Just get moving somehow, 1 foot in front of the other, and then incorporate it into your daily routine.
Start the habit of exercise by slowly adding to those short walks. Gupta says to make slight changes to increase your steps. Try parking farther away from a store or from work, or take the stairs instead of the elevator. But he says to commit to taking that 5-minute or more walk every day.
This snack-size exercise routine can eventually lead to longer walks and workouts. Usually it takes 2 to 3 weeks for something to become a habit, but if you can build up to 11 minutes of more moderate to vigorous types of activity a day, you could lower your risk of cancer, cardiovascular disease, even premature death.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
So here is what we are working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. Budget analysts say the GOP tax cut and spending bill would add trillions of dollars to the government's debt over the next 10 years. NPR's Morning Edition digs into the numbers. And KPBS Midday Edition has a roundup of arts and culture events around the county in the Weekend Arts Preview. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.